Hey everybody, welcome back to Mr. Global's channel. Today we're going to talk about something you may not be aware of. And that is the fact that big oil companies are working tirelessly and spending hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions, to redefine certain fossil fuels as being green energy. And this is part of their new plan in their war against clean and renewable energy. Because if they can simply redefine certain types of fossil fuels to be green energy, then they are not subject to any laws that may be passed in the future that are not pro-fossil fuel laws. And in addition to that, they could potentially collect U.S. taxpayers' subsidies for green energy projects while also receiving U.S. taxpayers' subsidies for oil and gas projects. Yes, this, what do you call this? Double dipping? And in the latest victory in this push to redefine natural gas as a green energy comes from the state of Louisiana. Yes, Louisiana is the state to redefine natural gas, a planet-warming fossil fuel, as green energy. How did they do this? There is an organization, a conservative think tank named ALEC, A-L-E-C. Now, ALEC is known as the American Legislative Exchange Council, and the vast majority of their funding comes from none other than the Koch brothers, some of the richest oil men on the planet. And the American Legislative Exchange Council, otherwise known as ALEC, created a climate model of their own that shows, I am not kidding about this, they actually made a climate model that shows natural gas is, in fact, a clean energy, which goes against every climate model that has ever existed in the history of time. They basically made up their own model. And they are funneling and pouring hundreds of millions of dollars into the pockets of local, state, and federal politicians, conservatives, but mostly on local and state levels. They are doing this on a state-by-state basis. So how many states currently consider natural gas to be a green energy? Well, now we can add Louisiana to the list. How about Ohio? Yes, Ohio now considers natural gas to be a green energy. How about Indiana? Yes, Indiana. How about Tennessee? Yes, Tennessee thinks natural gas is a green energy. And the one that may surprise you the most, because even though it's a purple state, it has a Democratic governor. The state of Michigan now recognizes natural gas as a green energy. Last year, the state of Michigan was pushing a net zero by whatever year policy. And they got that legislation passed. They absolutely got that legislation passed that states all electricity must be produced by clean energy by some certain year in the future. How did they get that passed? They redefined natural gas as a clean energy. They redefined natural gas as a green energy. Let's not forget that natural gas, for the purposes of this piece of content, we'll use the word methane. Now, the problem with natural gas is when it leaks. When you produce natural gas and you burn it like you're supposed to, it's actually fairly clean. Significantly cleaner than coal. 1,000 times cleaner than coal. But the problem with natural gas is that it's a gas, and it tends to leak in very small amounts. There's millions of wells across the United States, millions of homes across the United States that have very tiny natural gas leaks. And what is leaking out of those pipes is methane. And the cumulative effect of all of those natural gas leaks, pipelines, wells, even at homes and businesses, even at landfills, the cumulative effect of all of these leaks is significant and has huge consequences on climate change and warming the planet. Now, if there was a way to completely eliminate any natural gas from ever leaking, it still wouldn't be a green energy, but it would be significantly cleaner than coal. The problem is we have not found any way to stop those leaks, because there's millions of wells across this country and around the world that have very old equipment that are going to leak, and there's nothing we can do about it. On a global scale, if natural gas facilities, pipelines, wells, homes, anywhere natural gas goes, on a global scale, if approximately 0.2% of all of the natural gas in the world is leaking, then all of the natural gas in the world is dirtier than all of the coal in the world. Here's the thing. We don't really know how much is leaking. We don't know how much is leaking. It could be less than 0.2%. It could be more. If anyone says they know how much natural gas is leaking, it's a complete guess. They don't know. But the larger point, the most important thing, is that billionaires who own fossil fuel companies are actively lining the pockets of our politicians to try to redefine, to try to reclassify a potent climate warming fossil fuel as clean energy so they can reap the benefits of it. We cannot work towards a cleaner future, even a cleaner future that includes fossil fuels, because listen, the future is going to include fossil fuels. You can't just get away from it. But we can't work towards a cleaner future if we can't even be honest with ourselves about what is clean and what is not. Yes, there are certain kinds of renewable energy that are dirtier than others. There are certain kinds of fossil fuel energy that are dirtier than others. But the idea or the concept that natural gas is clean energy is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard. It is a blatant lie meant to promote something that's going to be in very high demand in the coming years. And if it's not enough, as if it's not enough that natural gas is going to be expensive, that it's going to be in very high demand, if it's not enough that people that produce natural gas are going to make billions and billions of dollars, now they want more. They want more subsidies, they want less rules, they want unfettered access to do whatever they want. Because once they know they can make, I don't know, $100 billion, the very next thing they do is try to figure out, okay, how do we make that 101 billion? How do we make that 102 billion? Because that's how these people think. And as long as we have people in local and state offices and federal offices, as long as we have politicians who are willing to take the bribes, to take the lobbying money, to take whatever they can, and using their power in office to enrich themselves, this stuff is going to continue. And they're going to go state by state by state. It would not surprise me one bit if my state, the state of Oklahoma, was next. Thanks.